Name one consequence a teacher faces for not teaching you properly. There isn't one. And it's not an accident. It's a deliberate choice that modern education has made as it scaled up. It brought in access, but it did not build the required obligation. Now, here's what is strange. A document which was written thousands of years ago, a legal text which is primarily known for its discriminatory remarks on caste system, women rights, etc., has a special clause that says if you accept a student, you are obligated to transmit your full knowledge honestly without any kind of a filter. And if you deliberately teach something wrong or false to keep that student dependent, then you are doing a gross injustice. Your own knowledge is going to turn against you, and you would not even receive the benefits that your stature would bestow upon you. That text is Manusmriti chapter 2. And it's actually more interesting than the version that we all have been told for ages. Now, Manusmriti talks about dharma. And every time you hear the word dharma, the English translation that you get online is righteousness, which means being good, the good person. But that definition, in my opinion, is as good as describing a car as, a metal box. You know, technically it's correct, but it completely misses the point. The Sanskrit root for dharma is dhar, which means to hold, to sustain. Dharma is not about being a good person. Dharma is the very fabric, the very structure that holds the society in place. Now, chapter 2 opens up to eminent sages asking Manu directly, how do we actually know what dharma is? And what are the rules by which the Chaturvarna is supposed to live? Now, his answer is probably one of the most important series of verses in the entire text, not just in the chapter. He talks about four sources of dharma. The very first source, the supreme authority, are the Vedas, the revealed knowledge. Following the Vedas, the second source is the Smriti, which is the remembered traditions, the translations, the simplified versions, the codex, one of which is Manusmriti. And one aspect which I would like to mention here is Manu considers his Manusmriti in the same position as the Vedas, as coming from the same source of authority, and hence questioning them is questioning the very fabric of the universe creation itself. The third source of dharma is sadachar, which means good, virtuous behavior by uncorrupted people. Now, when the first two don't give you any direction, you are supposed to get direction from the elders, the knowledgeable, people who have won over their senses, and they are not in control over any kind of desire. Now, even if these kind of people fail to give you an answer, you have to follow your own moral compass. Can you believe that? A text which was written thousands of years ago tells you to trust your moral compass when everything else fails, which means it is inherently accepting that, hey, I may not be the supreme authority on everything. There may be things that I miss. And in those cases, this is what you do. And I believe, you know, even today, this holds true. I've heard of many legal cases where this similar structure is kind of followed in active judgments, especially in the Hindu personal law. Now, before you get too impressed, you know, Manu also had specific ideas about who is the authority, who is allowed to learn, and who is not given this right. We'll get to that point exactly, like who is excluded and what. But first, let's look at the system, right? How do you actually get into the system that Manu has built? One of the most important ceremonies in Sanatan Dharma, which is the Upanayana. Upanayana means bringing near, a second birth. This is the ceremony that is conducted when the child is ready to be educated. This is the time when a child wears three cotton strands twisted together in a clockwise direction and worn from your left shoulder to your right hip. And then you physically move into your teacher's house. You will leave your family home for not one, not two, but 12 years. During these 12 years, you will stay at your guru's place and you are expected to do the household chores, respect your teacher, get everything ready for the rituals, and you are expected to beg alms from different families. Again, there is a limit to how many households you can beg from, and eat only that which is given as alms. You're supposed to wake up at dawn, gather the firewood for the yagnas and the agnikaryas. You are not supposed to contradict your teacher. You're not supposed to question your teacher. You never walk ahead of them. You never sit at the same level as them unless you're traveling on a boat or a chariot or any other vehicle. You always treat them as equivalent to the Holy Trinity, which is the Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. And in exchange, the student receives Vidya. And Vidya doesn't just mean information and knowledge, it's actual transformation. According to Manu, your biological father gives you the body, and it is your guru who imparts the soul, which means ancient Gurukul education system has not separated knowledge from character. Now, here's some parts which you need to make note of. A teacher should not accept any student who is not sincere in their learning, who is not worthy of that knowledge because of their character or because of their inclination towards learning. But once a teacher accepts a student's service, and if they fail to transmit the full knowledge, they have committed a gross injustice. The student's years of obedience and servitude have created a claim to the teacher's knowledge. And if the teacher fails, the student has all the right to look for another teacher. And a teacher who deliberately teaches something false just to keep the student dependent, to protect their own authority, and people who only impart partial knowledge have poisoned themselves, and this poison would turn against them. Their authority dissolves from the inside. So, while the Brahmin, the teacher, is treated as a god, they are also held at the highest standard of honesty. Both sides of the relation exists. A student is obligated to be humble and serve their teacher to gain the knowledge sincerely, and the teacher is expected to impart that knowledge honestly. Now, let's hold that accountability standard in your head because I want to show you how does this standard measure against what do we have today, the so-called modern education system. According to an ASER report 2023, more than 50%, more than half of class 5 students in rural India can't even read a class 2 level text. Now, these are students who have attended the school, right? Who are in the education system, who have government teachers teaching them. The infrastructure is present. and still they are not able to perform at the standard that is expected. Now, I'm not saying that you have to replace modern schools with gurukuls. I'm not romanticizing a model which excluded one fourth of the population. But just look at the principle, right? That accepting a student creates a kind of an obligation, and a teacher is actually evaluated based on what the student has learned. Unlike modern measures or attendance and some administrative paperwork, a 2000-year-old text had much higher expectations and standards of quality expected from its teachers and its students. A student who is smart enough can complete their education in 9 years and move ahead, or they can stay back for an additional equivalent amount of time to complete their education. But even after that, which is roughly around 24 to 27 years of age, you're not able to complete your education, you have to leave the Gurukul and live with whatever education you have learned till that point of time. You've learned only one Veda, okay, great, live with that. You've learned two Vedas, great. You have learned three Vedas, excellent. You're not able to learn even one Veda, you are no longer considered a Dvija, you are out of that system. Now, the same chapter, while it is maintaining the highest quality of expectation in education, also explicitly excludes Shudras and women. This is very surprising because roughly, 100 shlokas later, the same Manu says that a younger Brahmin should exhibit the same level of respect to a Shudra who is elder than them, equivalent to their father. You know, filial respect. Age creates a claim to respect that cuts across all Varnas. So that makes me think, if Varnas were really set as superior and set in stone, why would this rule come up? We briefly touched upon this topic. The Gurukul model did not separate knowledge from character. The curriculum and the lifestyle were inseparable. And I believe Manu has understood something about educational psychology that now we are discovering in the last 20, 30 years, which is the conditions under which you learn shape the kind of learner and shape the kind of human being you become. Knowledge alone is no longer sufficient. The right character building should also happen at the same age. And it is the responsibility of the gurus and in this age, the parents to impart that right character. As I said, the accountability ran both directions. The student is expected to be to have that total devotion, and we expect total honesty from the teacher. You tell me something. Such a sophisticated education system, why did it not touch their conscience that you are removing a certain section of the society from this entire education fabric and not giving them the opportunity to grow? What were they thinking? Right? The exclusions are real, the exclusions are explicit, and it's not something that you can cover up using some sort of a clever interpretation, because it's very, very, very clear. Shudras excluded, women excluded. In fact, there is a verse which says in chapter 2 that for a woman, marriage is equivalent to Upanayana, and serving the husband and doing their household duties is as equal, or is the same as performing rituals. So this, when you weave this into a kind of philosophy or a theology, it becomes very difficult to digest this as a person who has a conscience. Now, again, like I mentioned, the Shudra verse exists, right? But surprisingly, while it talks about this, the same chapter 2 also says a person who imparts knowledge is great. A father is 100 times greater than the teacher, and a mother is 1,000 times greater than the father. And whenever you encounter elders, not just men, women, your mother, your elder mother, your elder sister, you're supposed to treat them the same and you are supposed to bow down to them every time. Whoever is younger to you or is of the same age, you refer to them as sister and thus maintain your purity of thought. And the same chapter also talks about respecting Shudra. So, these contradictions that exist within Manusmriti, make it a very interesting study. So it's not just a simple black and white book, there is real wisdom. At the same time, there is real injustice that is written in the book, probably not very far apart as well. So that brings me to the end of the video. Let me know what you think about chapter 2. And chapter 3, we are going to talk about a very interesting aspect, which is the Grihasthrashtrama Dharma. So if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and share your thoughts over comments. And this is Vishwanath, aka Sanatan Vidyarthi, signing off.